So how much solar power do I need? Or how many batteries do I need in my RV? Those are common questions that I see a lot on internet forums that are all about RVs. And the problem, in my opinion, with that question is that that's a much more in-depth topic that can really be covered in those types of forums. So again, in my opinion, there are really three questions you need to take a deep dive into to determine how much solar power or how many batteries you need, or maybe even how big of a generator you need in your RV. And those questions are, number one, how much power do you need to produce in a 24-hour period when you're doing things like boondocking? Number two would be, what's the maximum power that you need to produce at any given time? And then the third question is, what kind of boondocker are you, or how long do you intend to boondock at a time? So as you can see, those are some questions that really just can't be answered very effectively in those RV internet forums. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna take a look at how to do a power audit, because that is typically the answer that you see to those questions in these internet forums, is just go do a power audit. Well, that's a really good answer, but it's really only a partial answer. So first of all, what is a power audit? And then once you've completed the power audit, then what do you do with that data? So again, today, what we're gonna look at is just that power audit process. And then to answer those three questions that we just identified, I'm actually gonna send you over to a much more in-depth blog post that we created for this topic. And the reason I'm gonna do that is because I think the power audit process is something that I can show you and demonstrate easily in a video, whereas the rest of the process, answering those three questions, I think that information will be much easier to digest in that blog post format. So I really want to kind of get off of this roof. It's a little chilly up here. It's really bright. So let's head down inside and we'll start talking about what that power audit is, and we'll look at the process of how to do it. Okay, so now we're back inside where it's nice and toasty and warm. And what we're gonna do here, again, is just focus on this power audit. And I chose the kitchen because there are quite a few items in the kitchen that I think most people are gonna wanna use when they're boondocking. So just for example, right behind me here, I've got the microwave, the toaster, and the coffee pot, all in this little corner of the kitchen. Now, there are really two different techniques, I would say, to perform a power audit on your RV. The first technique is gonna involve finding out how much power each individual load draws. And then within that technique itself, there are a few ways that you can go about doing that. And as we go along here, I think we'll see that we'll probably need a combination of those three methods to accurately determine how much power each of these items draws. Okay, so I refer to this technique as the individual load technique, because like I said, we're gonna do all of these loads individually to see what power they draw. So one way you can do this is just look at the gadget or the appliance itself. And right here, I've got the toaster. I'm not gonna flip this thing upside down right now because it's gonna get crumbs all over the place, but I do already have a picture of the label on the bottom of this toaster. And just about every appliance or gadget that you have in your RV is going to have some kind of sticker or label on it that will tell you generally how much power that item uses. So as you can see here in this picture, this label on the toaster says that it draws about 800 watts. And then in this picture here, you can see that the coffee maker is gonna draw somewhere around 1200 watts. And then for the microwave, all we have to do is open up this door, and right inside of the door here, this is gonna tell us again how much power the microwave draws. Now, here's the thing, and I'm gonna show this to you here in just a few minutes, but this is not really my preferred way to really understand how much power each individual item draws. And the reason for that is just based on my own experience, those stickers are kind of a general idea of how much power they draw, but typically these items are all going to draw either more or less power than what that label or sticker says. So again, I'm going to demonstrate that for you here in just a moment when I move on to the next method here within this individual load technique. Having said that, when you just need to get a general idea of how much power one of these items draws. Looking at the sticker is an okay way to do that. It's just not my preferred method when I'm doing a power audit like this. So the second method here within this individual load technique is to use one of these small portable watt meters. Now, this is one of the more popular kind. It's a kilowatt meter, and you can find these on Amazon for about 30 bucks. And the way that these work is you simply plug this into a 120 volt outlet in your RV, and then all you have to do is plug your appliance into this, and this kilowatt meter will show you exactly how much power that item is drawing. So I'm just gonna demonstrate how this works for you for two reasons. Number one, I wanna show you how easy this is to use. And then number two, I wanna show you why just looking at those stickers or those label plates on each individual item isn't the best way to go, because like I said, those stickers are just almost an estimation of how much power they're gonna draw. But this thing will show you exactly how much power that draws. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna plug this toaster into this gadget, we're gonna plug it into the wall, and we're gonna see what this thing reads. Now keep in mind, this toaster, the sticker said it was a 800 watt toaster, so once we plug it in here, we'll see exactly what we get. But first I gotta get set up on the other side of the kitchen, because that's the only place that I have an outlet that is straight up and down where we're gonna be able to read this meter. All right, here we are over on the other side of the kitchen by the stove. This is where I've got my kilowatt meter plugged in now. And when you first turn this thing on, it defaults to tell you what the voltage is at that outlet. So as you can see here, we're reading about 118 volts. It may vary here just depending on what's going on with the whole system. I'm not gonna go into all the different functions that this thing does, because I really just wanna show you how it works when you're doing a power audit. So basically all you have to do with this thing is just hit the watt button so that it will monitor the amount of power that's being drawn through that circuit. And then all you have to do is just plug your device in. And then once you've got the device plugged in, just simply turn it on, and this kilowatt meter will show you exactly how much power it's drawing. So I'm just gonna turn this toaster on and we'll see what we got. There we go. It looks like this toaster is showing just shy of about 700 watts. And that's why I said earlier that I don't really like using that label plate method, because it's not always entirely accurate. This toaster's running about 100 watts less than what its label plate says. Now, in all fairness here, and I just put two and two together in my head just now, but this toaster is a few years old, and I've actually noticed recently that it takes longer to toast my bagels, toast my bread, whatever I put in there. It's taking a little longer than it used to, and I think it's probably just age on this thing. And now that I can see that it's drawing about 100 watts less than what it's rated for, I'm thinking it's just deteriorated over time, and that's why it's taken longer to toast all of my stuff. But again, that just goes to my point about not really relying fully on those label plates, because they may not be entirely accurate when you buy the appliance or the gadget brand new, and over time they may deteriorate and draw more or less power. So using one of these little plug-in watt meters is great to understand how much power these items draw that just simply plug into a 120 volt outlet. All right, now let's talk about the third method in that individual load technique, which is using one of these surge protectors, if you have the right kind, to monitor exactly how much power you are using at any given time. Now this one here is the Hughes Power Watchdog. It's a 50 amp surge protector. This one is Bluetooth capable, which means that I can monitor my power usage remotely on an app right on my phone. Now I'm certain that Hughes isn't the only brand that is capable of doing that. This is just the kind that I use, and this is what I'm gonna demonstrate for you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go inside and we're gonna start up the microwave, because that's kind of a big load, and we're gonna see exactly how much power that thing uses when we start it up. All right, here we are back inside in front of the microwave. And again, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna use our Hughes app here to see exactly how much power this thing draws when we start it up. And as we can see right now, I'm currently using about 120-ish, 125 watts on line 1 and about 230 watts or so on line 2. And so what we want to do here is, because I don't remember which side this comes off of, I just want to make a mental note of both sides, and then I want to see how much those watts go up when I start this microwave. And of course, I don't want to run this microwave with nothing in it, so I've just got a microwave safe glass and some water, and I'm just going to toss this in here. So again, I'm just going to hit the start button, and we're going to just see how much power this thing uses. Okay, so we started out at about 160 watts, and it looks like we're cycling somewhere between about 14 to 1500 watts. So I'm gonna guess somewhere between about 1250 to about 1350 watts of power being drawn by this microwave. And again, if we look at the label plate here, it says 1500 watts. So, you know, it's using, I think, a little bit less power than what the sticker says, but I think we got a pretty good estimate using this app. And I didn't really need to use this app on the microwave because it plugs in right inside of this cabinet here. But what I would use this app for is maybe on the air conditioner where it doesn't plug into a 120 volt outlet. So the only way to really monitor that power usage from an air conditioner is via this app, at least for me. Those are the 3 different methods I would use when you're talking about the individual load technique during a power audit. So now let's take a look at the second technique of performing this power audit. And I really think this is the easiest way to do it. And again, I've kind of coined this term as the total power technique, because in this technique, basically what we're going to do is just do a mock trial run of boondocking for a 24-hour period. And while we're doing that boondocking trial run, we're going to constantly monitor our power via our app on our phone from that surge protector. And then when it's complete, we're simply going to capture that number, which is going to tell us exactly how much power we used over an entire 24-hour period. Now, the way that I would do this is to start this boondocking trial run first thing in the morning. And what I would do is just get myself set up like I was boondocking, and then go into the app for my surge protector. And then for me, I would just go to the top of this app where it says energy reset. I would hit that button, hit confirm, and it's gonna reset my energy meter to 0. So now all I have to do is pretend like I'm boondocking for a 24-hour period. And at the end of that 24 hours, I just simply go back into my app, and it will tell me exactly how much power I used over that 24 hours. And I've got some pro tips to go along with this. So the first one is to just minimize the number of electrical loads that you use throughout the day and how long you use them. Obviously, the more electrical loads that you use and the longer you use them, the more total power that you're going to use in that 24-hour period. Now, to go along with that, I will say minimize them to the maximum extent possible, but you should still maintain a reasonable level of comfort, because you don't want to be uncomfortable while you're doing this, because then it just makes the whole boondocking experience miserable, and that's not what we're going for. The second tip here is to make sure you fill up your freshwater tank before you start the boondocking trial run, and then just completely disconnect from the city water. And the reason we want to do this is because when you're boondocking, your source of power is going to be your freshwater tank and your freshwater pump. And we want to be able to capture the energy or the power that that freshwater pump is using throughout that day. The third tip here is to pick a cool day where you're not going to need to run that air conditioning unit. Because in reality, there are very, very few solar setups that are capable of running air conditioning units for an extended period of time. You might be able to get 2 or 3 hours out of it when it's the hottest part of the day and you need it the most. But in general, the use of an air conditioning unit when you're boondocking really just isn't that feasible. Now, don't worry, for those of you who do actually want to use your air conditioning unit when you're boondocking, we can still capture how much power that uses, but I'm going to leave that up to the blog post to kind of walk through that, because again, I think that's just the best format to be able to digest that information. And the final tip here for this trial boondocking run is to just kind of go around and identify all of those electrical loads that you don't think you're going to need to use. Now, this is going to do 2 things for you. So first, it's just going to give you a simple reminder that you're doing a boondocking trial run and that you probably don't want to be running those loads if you don't absolutely need to. And then the second thing is you might actually identify things that you won't be able to live without when you are actually boondocking. And if that's the case, just remove that yellow sticky and go ahead and use that item like you normally would when you're boondocking. One final note on the power audit itself is that I actually recommend using a combination of both methods. So the individual load method and that total power method. And I would do that for two reasons. So number one, when you use that individual load method, it gives you a good idea of how much power each individual item draws in your RV. So if you decide later that you do or don't want to use any of those loads, then you have a good idea of how much more power you're going to use or how much power you're going to save. The second reason I like to do both is because I like my checks and balances. So if I do the individual load method and I add all of those numbers up, if they don't equal the number that I get from the total power method, at least somewhat closely, then I know that I've got a problem somewhere and I need to figure out what that problem is before I can continue with this process. All right, so having said that, that's really all we're going to discuss in the video part of this topic. Now, if you think about going through this process on your own and you come up with some number of how much total power you're going to use in a 24-hour period, and you kind of think to yourself, well, that's good information, but now what do I do with it? That's when you need to go check out our blog post. I'm not trying to lure anybody in on anything here. It's just that I really do believe that that's the best way to digest the information for all of our viewers. And some of the additional information in that blog post is going to be, number one, what do I do with the data that I just got from this power audit? And then number two, it's going to go in depth about how to kind of calculate how many batteries you might need or how many solar panels you're going to need. And it even goes a little bit into how big of an inverter and even how big of a generator that you need to, number one, completely rely on that generator for your boondocking experiences, or number two, just how big of a generator you might need to simply supplement that solar build out that you're thinking about. So again, go check out that blog post, because this power audit that we walked through in this video today is just one step in the whole process of determining what kind of a solar build out you need or how big of a generator or an inverter that you need. And that blog post is going to carry you the rest of the way through that process. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode, guys. I hope you check out that blog post. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button, and then don't forget to hit the bell button, because that's how you're going to get notified of all of our future videos. So as always, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.